Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome back to the live studios. And tonight we have come home, back to Govardhan. I'm here with Asi Krishna Swami Maharaj and Bhakta Matt, our director and techie. And I'm in my room. This is my home. This is where I live. I've lived here since 1994 in this room. And I travel out also once in a while. But this is where I really belong. So I'd like to share with you this nectarian atmosphere and continue our readings, continue my vow to read the Srimad-Bhagavatam to all of you every day. We've reached the third canto, 8th chapter of Srimad-Bhagavatam. And before we read, we're going to continue our vow to read Srila Sanatana Goswami's prayer. Beautiful, deep, realized prayer glorifying the Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavata Mahima Stotram, and it goes like this. Sarva Shastrabdi Piyusha Sarva Vedaika Satpala Sarva Siddhanta Ratnadya Sarva Lokaika Drikprada. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious jewels of all conclusive truths. You are the only giver of sight to all the worlds. Sarva Bhagavata Prana Srimad Bhagavata Prabho Kalidwanduditaditya Sri Krishna Parivartita. O life air of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master Srimad Bhagavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali. You are the exact image of Sri Krishna. Paramananda Pataya Prema Varshaksharayate Sarvada Savasevyaya Sri Krishnaya Namostume. I bow down to you who are supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. You can always be served by everyone. You are Sri Krishna himself. Madeka Bando Matsangin Madguru Man Mahadana Manistadaka Madbhagya Mad Ananda Namostute. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. Asadu sadhuta dayin adini chochata kada hanamuncha gadachin mam premna rit kantayospura. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me. Always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
So, Vidura has asked a series of questions to Maitreya Rishi that indicates that he knows everything, and that a pure devotee who inquires is inquiring for the benefit of everyone else. Now Maitreya Muni is going to begin to answer the latest series of questions that Vidura has asked. This is the third series of questions that he asked to keep Maitreya speaking about the glories of the Lord. So this chapter is called The Manifestation of Brahma from Garbhodakasayi Vishnu. Text 1. The great sage Maitreya Muni said to Vidura, the royal dynasty of King Puru is worthy to serve the pure devotees. because all the descendants of that family are devoted to the personality of Godhead. You are also born in that family, and it is wonderful that you are also, it is wonderful because you were also born in that family, and it is wonderful that because of your attempt, the transcendental pastimes of the Lord are becoming newer and newer at every moment. If I make some mistakes tonight, it's because I'm feeling so much ecstatic being here in Govardhan after such a long time, so please tolerate me. Hare Krishna. Purport. The great sage Maitreya thanked Vidura and praised him by reference to his family glories. The Puru dynasty was full of devotees of the personality of Godhead and was therefore glorious. Because they were not attached to impersonal Brahman or to the localized Paramatma, but were directly attached to Bhagavan, the personality of Godhead, they were worthy to render service to the Lord and his pure devotees. Because Vidura was one of the descendants of that family, naturally he engaged in spreading wide the ever-new glories of the Lord. Maitreya felt happy to have such glorious company as Vidura. He considered the company of Vidura most desirable because such association can accelerate one's dormant propensities for devotional service. Text 2. Now let me begin speaking on the Bhagavat Purana, which was directly spoken to the great sages by the personality of Godhead, for the benefit of those who are entangled in extreme miseries for the sake of very little pleasure. Purport. The sage Maitreya proposed to speak on Srimad-Bhagavatam because it was especially compiled and traditionally comes down in the disciplic succession for the solution of all the problems of human society. Only one who is fortunate can have the opportunity to hear Srimad-Bhagavatam in the association of pure devotees of the Lord. Under the spell of material energy, the living entities are entrapped in the bondage of many difficulties simply for the sake of a little bit of material happiness. They engage in fruitive activities not knowing the implications. Under the false impression that the body is the self, the living entities foolishly relate to so many false attachments. They think that they can engage with materialistic paraphernalia forever. This gross misconception of life is so strong that a person suffers continually life after life under the external energy of the Lord. If one comes in contact with the book Bhagavatam as well as with the devotee Bhagavata, who knows what the Bhagavatam is, then such a fortunate man gets out of the material entanglement. Therefore, Sri Maitreya Muni, out of compassion for the suffering men in the world, proposes to speak on the Srimad-Bhagavatam, first and last. Text 3. Some time ago, being inquisitive to know, Sanat Kumara, the chief of the boy saints, accompanied by other great sages, inquired exactly like you about the truths regarding Vasudeva, the Supreme, from Lord Sankarsana, who is seated at the bottom of the universe. Purport. This is in clarification of the statement that the Lord spoke directly on Srimad-Bhagavatam. When and unto whom the Bhagavatam was spoken is explained herewith. Questions similar to those put forward by Vidura were asked by great sages like Sanat Kumara and Lord Sankarsana, the plenary expansion of the Supreme Lord Vasudeva, answered them. Text 4. At that time, Lord Sankarsana was meditating upon his Supreme Lord, whom the learned esteem as Lord Vasudeva. But for the sake of the advancement of the great learned sages, he slightly opened his eyes, his lotus-like eyes, and began to speak. Could you hand me that little red thing right there on my desk? Little container. Yeah, right there. Thank you. Thank you. Text 5. The sages came from the highest planets down to the lower region through the water of the Ganges, and therefore the hair on their heads was wet. They touched the lotus feet of the Lord, which are worshipped with various paraphernalia by the daughters of the Serpent King when they desire good husbands. Purport. The Ganges water flows directly from the lotus feet of Vishnu, and its course runs from the highest planet of the universe down to the lowest. The sages came down from Satyaloka by taking advantage of the flowing water, a process of transportation made possible by the power of mystic yoga. If a river flows thousands and thousands of miles, a perfect yogi can at once transport himself from one place to another simply by dipping in its water. The Ganges is the only celestial river which flows throughout the universe, and great sages travel all over the universe via this sacred river. The statement that their hair was wet indicates that it was directly moistened by the water originating from the lotus feet of Vishnu, the Ganges. Whoever touches the water of the Ganges to his head surely touches the lotus feet of the Lord directly and can become free from all effects of sinful acts. If after taking a bath in the Ganges or being washed of all sins, a man guards himself against committing further sinful acts, then certainly he is delivered. But if he again takes up sinful activities, his bath in the Ganges is as good as that of the elephant, who nicely takes his bath in a river, but later spoils the whole thing by covering himself with dust on the land. Text 6. The four Kumaras, headed by Sanat Kumara, who all knew the transcendental pastimes of the Lord, glorified the Lord in rhythmic accents with selected words full of affection and love. At that time, Lord Sankarshan, with his thousands of raised hoods, began to radiate an effulgence from the glowing stones on his head. Purport. The Lord is sometimes addressed as Uttama Shloka, which means one who is worshipped with select words by devotees. A profusion of such selected words comes from a devotee who is fully absorbed in affection and love for the devotional service of the Lord. There are many instances in which even a small boy who is a great devotee of the Lord could offer excellent prayers in the choicest words for glorification of the pastimes of the Lord. In other words, without the development of fine affection and love, one cannot offer prayers to the Lord very suitably. Text 7. Lord Sankarshan thus spoke the purport of Srimad-Bhagavatam to the great sage Sanat Kumara, who had already taken the vow of renunciation. Sanat Kumara also in his turn when inquired of by Sankyana Muni, explained Srimad-Bhagavatam as he had heard it from Sankarsana. Let's read that again. Lord Sankarshan thus spoke the purport of Srimad-Bhagavatam to the great sage Sanat Kumara, who had already taken the vow of renunciation. Sanat Kumara also in his turn, when inquired of by Sankyayana Muni, explained Srimad-Bhagavatam as he had heard it from Sankarshan. Purport. This is the way of the Parampara system. Although Sanat Kumara, the well-known great saintly Kumara, was in the perfect stage of life, still he heard the message of Srimad-Bhagavatam from Lord Sankarshan. Similarly, when he was questioned by Sankyayana Rishi, he spoke to him the same message he had heard from Lord Sankarshan. In other words, unless one hears from the proper authority, one cannot become a preacher. In devotional service, therefore, 2 items out of the 9, namely hearing and chanting, are most important. Without hearing nicely, one cannot preach the message of Vedic knowledge. Text 8. The great sage Sankyayana was the chief amongst the transcendentalists, and when he was describing the glories of the Lord in terms of Srimad-Bhagavatam, it so happened that my spiritual master, Parashara, and Brihaspati both heard him. Now remember, this is Maitreya Rishi speaking. The great sage Parashara, as aforementioned, being so advised by the great sage Pulastya, spoke unto me, the foremost of the Puranas, Bhagavatam. I shall also describe this before you, my dear son, in terms of my hearing, because you are always my faithful follower. Purport. The great sage of the name Pulastya is the father of all demoniac descendants. Once upon a time, Parashara began a sacrifice in which all the demons were meant to be burnt to death because his father had been killed and devoured by one of them. The great sage Vasishta Muni arrived at the sacrifice and requested Parashara to stop the deadly action. And because of Vasishta's position and respect in the community of sages, Parashara could not deny the request. Parashara, having stopped at the sacrifice, Pulastya, the father of the demons, appreciated his Brahminical temperament and gave the blessing that in the future he would be a great speaker on the Vedic literatures called the Puranas, the supplements of the Vedas. Parashara's action was appreciated by Pulastya because Parashara had forgiven the demons out of his Brahminical power of forgiveness. Parashara was able to demolish all the demons in the sacrifice, but he considered demons are so made that they devour living creatures, men and animals. But why on that account should I withdraw my Brahminical qualification of forgiveness? As the great speaker of the Puranas, Parashara first of all spoke on the Srimad-Bhagavat Purana, because it is the foremost of all the Puranas. Maitreya Muni desired to narrate the same Bhagavatam he had heard from Parashara, and Vidura was qualified to hear it because of his faithfulness and his following the instructions received from authorities. I'll read that again. Maitreya Muni desired to narrate the same Bhagavatam he had heard from Parashara, and Vidura was qualified to hear it because of his faithfulness and his following the instructions received from superiors. So Srimad-Bhagavatam was being narrated from time immemorial by the disciplic succession, even before the time of Vyasadeva. The so-called historians calculate the Puranas to be only a few hundred years old, but factually, the Puranas existed from time immemorial, before all historical calculations by the mundaners and speculative philosophers. So this is a very interesting point. And I've heard from my superior, Gopi Puranadana Prabhu, who has studied the Sandarbhas very thoroughly and was in the process of translating and commenting on them. The first comment, verse by verse, except for the Tattva Sandarbha, ever. And he completed the Bhagavat Sandarbha, and he completed the translation of the Paramatma Sandarbha, but he wasn't able to complete the commentary before he left this world. And he explained to me something that is confirmed here in this purport, and that is that the Srimad-Bhagavatam Purana is eternal. Here, Parashara spoke Srimad-Bhagavatam Purana long before Vyasadeva brought it into the human society 5,000 years ago. So that means, according to Jiva Goswami in the Tattva Sandarbha, as I heard from Gopi Puranadana Prabhu, that the Bhagavad Purana is actually Shruti. It's actually an eternal sound. And even though there are different souls who take the positions of different personalities and names in the Bhagavatam, and here it's described that Vyasadeva is speaking it, or spoke it to Shukadev. Shukadev spoke it to Parikshit Maharaj, and then Sutta Goswami spoke it to the sages of Naimisharanya. It had been spoken many times before that. So this is very interesting and makes the level of authority of the Bhagavatam absolute. So if we accept the Bhagavatam in that spirit, and if we become loyal to our spiritual masters and to the Bhagavatam and to the speakers of the Bhagavatam, then we also can get the full benefit from the Bhagavatam and realize that the Bhagavatam is none different than Krishna. How can the Bhagavatam not be eternal if it is none different than Krishna? I never quite thought of it like that, but now that I've put these pieces together from this purport and what Gopi Puranadana Prabhu told me when we were working on the Brihat Bhagavatamrita together, it makes perfect sense. So the goal of chanting Hare Krishna is to realize that the sound of the holy name is not different than Krishna, and the goal of hearing the Bhagavatam is to realize that the Bhagavatam is a literary incarnation of Krishna, that it is none different than the Supreme Personality of Godhead Himself. We hear it in that spirit. We get the topmost association, the topmost knowledge. Text 10. At that time, when the three worlds were submerged in water, Garbhodakasayi Vishnu was alone, lying on his bedstead, the great snake Ananta, and although he appeared to be in slumber in his own internal potency, free from the action of the external energy, his eyes were not completely closed. Purport. The Lord is eternally enjoying transcendental bliss by his internal potency, whereas the external potency is suspended during the time of the dissolution of the cosmic manifestation. Text 11. Just like the strength of fire within fuel wood, the Lord remained within the water of dissolution, submerging all the living entities in their subtle bodies. He lay in the self-invigorated energy called Kala. Purport. After the three worlds, the upper, lower, and middle planetary systems merged into the water of dissolution, the living entities of all the three worlds remained in their subtle bodies, by dint of the energy called Kala. In this dissolution, the gross bodies became unmanifest, but the subtle bodies existed, just like the water of the material creation. Thus, the material energy was not completely wound up, as is the case in the full dissolution of the material world. Text 12. The Lord laid down for 1,000 cycles of 4 yugas in his internal potency, and by his external energy, he appeared to be sleeping within the water. When the living entities were coming out for further development of their fruitive activities, actuated by the energy called Kala, Shakti, he saw his transcendental body as bluish. Purport. In the Vishnu Purana, Kala Shakti is mentioned as avidya. The symptom of the influence of the Kala Shakti is that one has to work in the material world for fruitive results. The fruitive workers are described in Bhagavad Gita as mudhas, or foolish. Such foolish living entities are very enthusiastic to work for some temporary benefit within perpetual bondage. One thinks himself very clever throughout his life if he is able to leave behind him a great asset of wealth for his children, and to achieve this temporary benefit, he takes the risk of all sinful activities, without knowledge that such activities will keep him perpetually bound by the shackles of material bondage. Due to this polluted mentality, and due to material sins, the aggregate combination of living entities appeared to be bluish. Such an impetus of activity for fruitive result is made possible by the dictation of the external energy of the Lord, Kala. Text 13. The subtle subject matter of creation, on which the Lord's attention was fixed, was agitated by the material mode of passion, and thus the subtle form of creation pierced through his abdomen. Text 14. Piercing through, this sum total form of the fruitive activity of the living entities took the shape of the bud of the lotus flower generated from the personality of Vishnu, and by his supreme will illuminated everything like the sun and dried up the vast waters of devastation. Text 15. Into that universal lotus flower of Vishnu, Lord Vishnu personally entered as the Supersoul. And when it was thus impregnated with all the modes of material nature, the personality of Vedic wisdom, whom we call the Self-Born, was generated. Purport. This lotus flower is the universal Virat form, or the gigantic form of the Lord in the material world. It becomes amalgamated in the personality of Godhead Vishnu in his abdomen at the time of dissolution, and it becomes manifest at the time of creation. This is due to Garbhodakasayi Vishnu, who enters into each of the universes. In this form is the sum total of all the fruitive activities of the living entities conditioned by material nature, and the first of them, namely Brahma, or the controller of the universe, is generated from this lotus flower. This firstborn living being, unlike all the others, has no material father, and thus he is called self-born, or Swayambhu. He goes to sleep with Narayana at the time of devastation, and when there is another creation, he is born in this way. From this description we have the conception of 3, the gross Virat form, the subtle Hiranyagarbha, and the material creative force, Brahma. Text 16. Brahma, born out of the lotus flower, could not see the world, although he was situated in the whorl. He therefore circumambulated all of space, and while moving his eyes in all directions, he achieved 4 heads in terms of the 4 directions. Text 17. Lord Brahma, situated in that lotus, could not perfectly understand the creation, the lotus, or himself. At the end of the millennium, the air of devastation began to move the water and the lotus in great circular waves. Purport. Lord Brahma was perplexed about his creation, the lotus and the world, even though he tried to understand them for 1 millennium, which is beyond calculation in the solar years of human beings. No one therefore can know the mystery of the creation and cosmic manifestation simply by mental speculation. The human being is so limited in his capacity that without the help of the Supreme, he can hardly understand the mystery of the will of the Lord in terms of creation, continuance, and destruction. Text 18. Lord Brahma, in his ignorance, contemplated, "Who am I that I am situated on top of this lotus? Wherefrom has it sprouted? There must be something downwards, and that from which this lotus has grown must be within the water." Purport. The subject matter of the speculations of Brahma in the beginning regarding the creation of the cosmic manifestation is still a subject matter for mental speculators. The most intelligent man is he who tries to find the cause of his personal existence and that of the whole cosmic creation, and thus tries to find the ultimate cause. If his attempt is properly executed with penances and perseverance, it is sure to be crowned with success. Text 19. Lord Brahma, thus contemplating, entered the water through the channel of the stem of the lotus. But in spite of entering the stem and going nearer to the navel of Vishnu, he could not trace out the root. Purport. By dint of one's personal endeavor, one may go nearer to the Lord, but without the Lord's mercy, one cannot reach the ultimate point. Such understanding of the Lord is possible only by devotional service, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. Bhaktya mam abhijanati yavan yaschasmi tatpataha. Text 20. O Vidura, while searching in that way about his existence, Brahma reached his ultimate time, which is the eternal wheel in the hand of Vishnu, and which generates fear in the mind of the living entity, like the fear of death. 21. Thereafter, being unable to achieve the desired destination, he retired from such searching and came back again to the top of the lotus. Thus, controlling all objectives, he concentrated his mind on the Supreme Lord. Purport. Samadhi involves concentrating the mind upon the supreme cause of all, even if one is unaware of whether his actual nature is personal, impersonal, or localized. Concentration of the mind on the Supreme is certainly a form of devotional service. To cease from personal sense endeavors and to concentrate on the supreme cause is a sign of self-surrender. And when self-surrender is present, that is a sure sign of devotional service. Each and every living entity needs to engage in devotional service to the Lord if he wishes to understand the ultimate cause of his existence. So this is the essence of spiritual life, to surrender oneself. Self-surrender means to surrender oneself to the superior, to the supreme. Text 22. At the end of Brahma's 100 years, when his meditation was complete, he developed the required knowledge, and as a result he could see in his heart the Supreme within himself, whom he could not see before with the greatest endeavor. Purport. The Supreme Lord can be experienced only through the process of devotional service and not by one's personal endeavor in mental speculation. The age of Brahma is calculated in terms of divya years, which are distinct from the solar years of human beings. The divya years are calculated in Bhagavad Gita. Sahasra yuga paryantam ahar yad brahmano viduhu. Brahma's one day is equal to 1,000 times the aggregate of the 4 yugas, calculated to be 4,300,000 years. On that basis, Brahma meditated for 100 years before he could understand the supreme cause of all causes, and then he wrote the Brahma Samhita, which is approved and recognized by Lord Chaitanya, in which he sings, Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. One has to wait for the mercy of the Lord before one can either render service unto him or know him as he is. So this is very interesting. Brahma's one day is equal to 1,000 times the aggregate of the 4 yugas, calculated to be 4,300,000 years. So it's not clear here whether that parentheses calculated to be 4,300,000 years is speaking about Brahma's one day, or is talking about 4 yugas, or 1,000 times the aggregate of the 4 yugas. Let us see, just out of curiosity. We're on 22. See if we have the latest version is clearer. So it's talking about the aggregate of the 4 yugas. Aggregate of the 4 yugas is 4,300,000. So 1,000 times that is equal to 1 day of Brahma. One has to wait for the mercy of the Lord before he can either render service unto him or know him as he is. Text 23. Brahma could see that on the water there was a gigantic lotus-like white bedstead, the body of Sheshanaga, on which the personality of Godhead was lying alone. The whole atmosphere was illuminated by the rays of the jewels bedecking the hood of Sheshanaga, and that illumination dissipated all the darkness of those regions. Text 24. The luster of the transcendental body of the Lord mocked the beauty of the coral mountain. The coral mountain is very beautifully dressed by the evening sky, but the yellow dress of the Lord mocked its beauty. There is gold on the summit of the mountain, but the Lord's helmet, bedecked with jewels, mocked it. The mountain's waterfalls, herbs, and so on, with a panorama of flowers, seem like garlands, but the Lord's gigantic body and his hands and legs, decorated with jewels, pearls, tulsi leaves, and flower garlands, mocked the scene on the mountain. Purport. The panoramic beauty of nature, which strikes one with wonder, may be taken as a perverted reflection of the transcendental body of the Lord. One who is therefore attracted by the beauty of the Lord is no longer attracted by the beauty of material nature, although he does not minimize its beauty. In Bhagavad Gita 259 it is described that one who is attracted by Param, the Supreme, is no longer attracted by anything inferior. So it's interesting, isn't it, here, that it says, one who is therefore attracted by the beautiful Lord is no longer attracted by the beauty of material nature, although he does not minimize its beauty. In other words, a devotee, although he's not attracted to the beauty of the material creation, still sees it and still appreciates it. He doesn't become blind to the wonders of the Lord, to the wonders of the creation. But he's not attracted to it. He's not attracted to it because he's so attracted to the form of Krishna, to the beauty of Krishna. Text 25. His transcendental body, unlimited in length and breadth, occupied the three planetary systems, upper, middle, and lower. His body was self-illuminated by unparalleled dress and variegatedness, and was properly ornamented. Purport. The length and breadth of the transcendental body of the Supreme Personality of Godhead could only be measured by his own measurement, because he is all-pervading throughout the complete cosmic manifestation. The beauty of material nature is due to his personal beauty, yet he is always magnificently dressed and ornamented to prove his transcendental variegatedness, which is so important in the advancement of spiritual knowledge. Text 26. The Lord showed his lotus feet by raising them. His lotus feet are the source of all awards achieved by devotional service, free from material contamination. Such awards are for those who worship him in pure devotion. The splendor of the transcendental rays from his moon-like toenails and fingernails appeared like the petals of a flower. Purport. The Lord fulfills the desires of everyone just as one desires. Pure devotees are interested in achieving the transcendental service of the Lord, which is non-different from him. Therefore the Lord is the only desire of the pure devotees, and devotional service is the only spotless process for achieving his favor. Srila Rupa Goswami says in his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu that pure devotional service is jnana karma janavritam. Pure devotional service is without any tinge of speculative knowledge and fruitive activities. Such devotional service is able to award the pure devotee the highest result, namely direct association with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna. According to the Gopala Tapani Upanishad, the Lord showed one of the many thousands of petals of his lotus feet. It is said, Brahmano shau anavartadam medyatak stutak prarardhante so buddhyata gopavesho me purastad avirbhabhuva. After penetrating for millions of years, Lord Brahma could understand the transcendental form of the Lord as Sri Krishna in the dress of a cowherd boy, and thus he recorded his experience in the Brahma Samhita in the famous prayer, Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami. Text 27. He also acknowledged the service of the devotees and vanquished their distress by his beautiful smile. The reflection of his face, decorated with earrings, was so pleasing because it dazzled with the rays from his lips and the beauty of his nose and eyebrows. Purport. Devotional service to the Lord is very much obliging to him. There are many transcendentalists in different fields of spiritual activities, but devotional service to the Lord is unique. Devotees do not ask anything from the Lord in exchange for their service. Even the most desirable liberation is refused by devotees, although offered by the Lord. Thus the Lord becomes a kind of debtor to the devotees, and he can only try to repay the devotees' service with his ever-enchanting smile. The devotees are ever satisfied by the smiling face of the Lord, and they become enlivened. And by seeing the devotees so enlivened, the Lord himself is further satisfied. So there is continuous transcendental competition between the Lord and his devotees by such reciprocation of service and knowledge. I have to check one thing, it's my duty. Here it says, thus the Lord becomes a kind debtor to the devotees, and he can only try to repay the devotees' service. And there's a comma rather than an apostrophe, S, and that's the proper form of the possessive devotees' service. So I have to look this up. Just give me 1 second. Part of my duty in life is to assist. 28. Yes. 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 It's corrected in the latest database. Devotees with an apostrophe after the S, service. And here it's got a comma after devotees service, which is completely breaks up the reading, and because I knew it, I didn't read it wrongly. This is the purpose of correcting mistakes in the database. Hare Krishna. We don't want to enshrine mistakes in Srila Prabhupada's books because they're there. We want to correct them and make his literature as perfect as possible, and that is his desire. He said, correct the punctuation, correct the grammar, correct the syntax, and phrasing for clarity and force. Text 28. O my dear Vidura, the Lord's waist was covered with yellow cloth, resembling the saffron dust of the Kadamba flower, and it was encircled by a well-decorated belt. His chest was decorated with the Srivat's marking and a necklace of unlimited value. Text 29. As a sandalwood tree is decorated with fragrant flowers and branches, the Lord's body was decorated with valuable jewels and pearls. He was the self-situated tree, the Lord of all others in the universe. And as a sandalwood tree is covered with many snakes, so the Lord's body was also covered by the hoods of Ananta. Purport. The word avyakta moolam is significant here. Generally, one can see the roots of a tree, but as far as the Lord is concerned, he is the root of himself, because there is no other separate cause of his standing but he himself. In the Vedas it is said that the Lord is Swashraya Shreya. He is his own support, and there is no other support for him. Therefore, Abhyakta means the Supreme Lord himself and no one else. Srila Prabhupada's purports are astounding, and his translations of these beautiful verses are so poetic and at the same time easily to enter and to assimilate, to visualize. He's not trying to impress anybody with how flowery he can write, flowery words. It's amazing, isn't it? Completely amazing. And reading here in Govardhan gives it a special ring. There's a ring to it. Text 30. Like a great mountain, the Lord stands as the abode for all moving and non-moving living entities. He is the friend of the snakes because Lord Ananta is his friend. As a mountain has thousands of golden peaks, so the Lord was seen with the thousands of golden helmeted hoods of Anantanaga. And as a mountain is sometimes filled with jewels, so also his transcendental body was fully decorated with valuable jewels. As a mountain is sometimes submerged in the ocean water, so the Lord is sometimes submerged in the water of devastation. Text 31. Lord Brahma, thus looking upon the Lord in the shape of a mountain, concluded that he was Hari, the personality of Godhead. He saw that the garland of flowers on his chest glorified him with Vedic wisdom and sweet songs and looked very beautiful. He was protected by the Sudarshan wheel for fighting, and even the sun, moon, air, fire, etc. could not have access to him. 32. When Lord Brahma, the maker of the universal destination, thus saw the Lord, he simultaneously glanced over creation. Lord Brahma saw the lake in Lord Vishnu's navel, and the lotus flower, as well as the devastating water, the drying air, and the sky, all became visible to him. Text 33. Lord Brahma, thus being surcharged with the emotive passion, became inclined to create, and after seeing the 5 causes of creation indicated by the personality of Godhead, he began to offer his respectful prayers on the path of the creative mentality. Purport. Even if one is in the material mode of passion, to create something in the world, he has to take shelter of the Supreme for the necessary energy. That is the path of the successful termination of any attempt. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 3rd canto, 8th chapter of the Srimad-Bhagavatam, entitled Manifestation of Brahma from Garbhodakasayi, Vishnu. How wonderful is that? So we're going to stop here tonight. My traveling companion, Dr. Matthew Bell Roberts, and I have been traveling since a couple of days now, a few days, and it's time to take rest. It's getting a little late, and if anybody's out there watching live, which may not be the case because of the time difference, please feel free to give your reflections or ask for further elaboration on this very wonderful and incredible pastime of the creation of Lord Brahma. I thought it was one reflection I had while I was reading it, and that was at the beginning of this, it's described that this is Garbhodakasayi Vishnu doing this. So that means the universe had already been partially created, and it also described how it was a partial annihilation being described, not the full annihilation. It was talking about the three worlds being annihilated. But above the three worlds, there's Janamloka, Maharloka, Tapaloka, and Satyaloka, and Dhruvaloka. So, very interesting how Brahma does this every day, every morning when he gets up. He goes through this exercise of recreating, a part of the universe, and Garbhodakasayi Vishnu is right there to help him. It's like when we go to sleep at night, right? All of our activities cease, and we kind of go into a dreamlike state, and while we're waking up, we really don't remember who we are yet, and then when we finally wake up and we remember, then we can get up and do the things that we were supposed to do in the day. It's kind of like that.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that.
There was a theme throughout the reading about Krishna's
Matt's
appearance.
saying that there was a theme throughout the reading of Krishna's appearance.
Like what he looked like.
Yes, what he
his
looked
beauty.
like, beauty.
When we're engaged in chanting or religious chanting,
When we're engaged in religious chanting,
how are we supposed to really picture?
how are we supposed to picture Krishna? Well, we picture Krishna exactly as he's being described in the Srimad-Bhagavatam, don't we? And the verses are very helpful. Of course, Krishna will reveal to us his form according to our original relationship with him. Lord Brahma is seeing the form of Krishna as Krishna desired, and first he saw like a mountain, and then eventually, remember it said Krishna appeared to him as Krishna and shook his hand. So these things are very, very difficult to understand unless one is performing devotional service. And therefore it's repeated again and again, isn't it?
Yeah.
One can't actually see the form of the Lord unless one is actually performing pure devotional service. It's the pleasure of the Lord caused by pure devotional service that enables one to see him. Because unless he decides to appear before us, there's no question of us imagining his form.
Is that why he gives us the deity form?
Yes, absolutely. And the deity form is formed exactly according to the descriptions in the Shastras. Therefore, we don't see any form of Krishna in the world that isn't like the form that you hear about in the Srimad-Bhagavatam. And particularly Brahma Samhita. This is very wonderful. Lord Chaitanya himself discovered this Brahma Samhita. It had been lost to human society. There are many scriptures that are lost over the course of time in human society. And the mission, one of the missions of the great rishis, the great sages, is to bring those scriptures back. Some of them are not brought back, but some of them are brought back. Sanatana Goswami brought back the Brihad Bhagavatamrita, which is the appendix of Jaimini Rishi's Mahabharata, just as the Harivamsa is the appendix to Vyasadev's Mahabharata, an added, feature of it, which gives details not given in the text itself. Vyasadeva brought the Bhagavatam back into the human society, even though it was there eternally. We just read about it. That was another important point that was made in this reading, that the Bhagavatam was spoken. We many millions of years ago, before Vyasadeva spoke it to Shukadeva Goswami, and before Narada asked him to write it or to manifest it. And then in the text itself, in the first canto, remember, he goes in a trance, and then he sees the Lord and the living entity and the external energy. So it's revealed knowledge, something that's already there, just not revealed yet.
He was like really hungry, he sat down.
Yes. Thirsty.
Thirsty, yeah.
That's what we have to be. We have to be thirsty. Thirsty for this knowledge, thirsty for to know who Krishna is, to know our source, to know, just like Brahma, he was thirsty. So he searched and searched. He even went down inside the lotus stem and went down to the water and still couldn't see him, because you have to have the eyes to see him. You can't just see him by some austerity or some great penance. But when he finally met him, if you remember earlier in the second canto, Krishna told him, this penance that you did with devotion is my heart. Therefore this is the way into my heart. And when you work your way into Krishna's heart, even though he's in your heart, then he'll reveal himself in the proper form, the proper time, proper place. And the pure devotees, they're not anxious about this. They're patient, but at the same time very eager. Utsaha, nishchaya, dharya, tat karma pravartana. They perform their duties systematically, with great patience, regardless of what the result seems to be, with great enthusiasm, and with patience, and with determination. Determination means they don't stop under any circumstances.
We have a reflection.
Huh?
We have a reflection.
Oh, we have a reflection.
Okay, from Hannah.
From Hannah. Hey Hannah, I got your message, but I was in a car driving here, and I haven't had a chance to actually think deeply enough about it and to answer, but it would be nice if we could have a chat sometime.
She says, I noticed during the reading that your whole being and everything affiliated with you is drenched in Krishna Prema. I bow down to your lotus feet.
Oh, Hannah, you're so sweet and so nice. What can I say? You must be a pure devotee. You see things that aren't there. But it's a fact that here in this place, this is my, I've been living in this room since 1994, and we did a great austerity. Talking about the austerity that Brahma did, whenever we do something substantial with austerity, then that thing, whatever it is, becomes very solid and attractive, and a sense of worth and a sense of just substantiality pervades it. Anyway, thank you very much for the encouragement. I deeply appreciate it, and it'd be nice if we could talk. We need to talk about that situation that rather than write something dry, I think we need to talk about it. I need to hear something from you before I can, say something to give guidance. So, do you have my Skype name? This is pretty mystical, that we're chatting back and forth from Govardhan to Houston.
The other side of the world.
Pretty mystical.
He says, no, I don't.
Have the Skype name?
Right.
Well, the Skype name is KBDGOSWAMI. All small letters. The same as my email address, only without the at me.com. That's it. That's my Skype name. Okay, call me up, Skype me when you see me online sometime. And if it's an inconvenient time, I'll just tell you, and then we'll schedule a time. Okay? All right, Hannah, hang in there. You're doing great. You're preaching up a storm, and there's results coming, and I'm sure that everyone is very enlivened to watch you advance in your devotional life. All right, we'll stop here. Thank you again, everybody. Please, sharing means caring. Caring means sharing. So let us share this wonderful experience of hearing the Bhagavatam every single day like this. Hearing Prabhupada's purports, not just one verse and purport, but many verses and purports all at once. It's very, very enlivening, very saturating us with Prabhupada's association, his Sangha. Okay, Srimad-Bhagavatam ki jai, Vidura ki jai, Maitri Rishi ki jai, Sankarshan ki jai, Sanat Kumara ki jai, Gaur Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol. Thank you very much. Hari